Tom entered the potions classroom, his gaze flickering to the board where Snape's instructions were scrawled. Pair up and work on the potion on page 141. He scanned the room, sizing up the other students, his lip curving into a slight frown. Pairing up with the wrong person could waste valuable study time. He needed to find someone capable and focused. Tom's gaze lingered on a few students, assessing their potential as partners. A Ravenclaw girl engrossed in her textbook, a Hufflepuff boy diligently cleaning his cauldron. None stood out as a clear choice. Just as he was considering the least dreadful option, the door creaked open, admitting a latecomer. Tom turned at the sound of the door, a hint of annoyance crossing his features. He watched as you stumbled in, your gaze glued to the board. Cutting it close, don't you think? He remarked, a subtle note of impatience in his voice. His arms folded across his chest. Tom's eyes flickered over you, his expression unreadable, before he spoke again. Late, he said, his voice tinged with dry sarcasm. And yet somehow, you're always the first to arrive when trouble brews. Quite the talent. Tom's gaze lingered on you for a moment, his mind already sizing you up. Though punctuality isn't exactly a quality I would call admirable in a potions partner. Tom let out a scoff, his eyes narrowing. Stuck with you, he retorted, his voice edged with irritation. How delightful. He glanced at the rest of the room, where other students were pairing up. It seemed they were indeed stuck together. Well, we might as well make the best of it. Can you at least follow instructions and pay attention? His tone was sharp, expecting nothing less than competence. Tom's annoyance flared, visibly bristling at your nonchalant demeanor. Not really, he repeated, his tone dripping with sarcasm. How charming. He followed you to the empty seat, his eyes narrowing as he observed your apathetic attitude. This is not a game, he said bluntly. Potions demand precision and focus. If you can't manage that, you'll ruin the entire concoction. Is being a hindrance amusing to you? Tom's irritation grew as you laughed at his words. He crossed his arms, his patience rapidly diminishing. You find this amusing, do you? He said, his voice a mix of irritation and disbelief. We're not here to entertain ourselves. We have a potion to brew, and I won't tolerate distractions. He watched you rummage through your bag, his eyes narrowing. He was already beginning to regret being paired with you. Tom sighed heavily, exasperated by your carefree attitude. Oh, you finally found the page, he remarked sarcastically. How brilliant. He leaned against the desk, watching you intently as you skimmed over the instructions. Tom's eyes rolled to the ceiling in frustration. Of course you missed the last class, he retorted with a scoff. Why am I not surprised? He moved closer, peering over your shoulder at the page. Yes, Wiggenweld potion, he said with a hint of irritation. And judging by your clueless look, you have no idea what ingredients go in first. Tom's eyes widened in disbelief, his annoyance reaching new levels. You're joking, he said, his tone disbelieving. You don't know what the Wiggenweld potion even is. He took a deep breath, trying to restrain his growing irritation. It's one of the most common healing potions, he said through gritted teeth. How have you managed to arrive in 4th year without knowing that? Tom pinched the bridge of his nose, his patience wearing very thin. You forgot, he repeated, his voice tinged with heavy sarcasm. Of course you forgot. How convenient. He ran a hand through his hair, frustration radiating from him. This is going to be a long class, he muttered quietly, more to himself than to you. Tom's annoyance flared at your shushing gesture. Keep my voice down, he retorted, his voice low but sharp. You're the one who can't even remember basic potion knowledge. You've put us behind because of your carelessness. He shot a glance at the other students, noting their focused expressions. And now I have to babysit you just so we can catch up, he grumbled, his irritation clearly evident. Do you understand the instructions? His tone slightly less biting than before. No, he said bluntly, his tone firm. Potions require precision and accuracy. Just throwing in a few things is a recipe for disaster. We'll probably end up with an explosion or a poisonous concoction if we do that. He shot a disapproving look at you. You have no concept of proper potion-making technique, do you? Just mindless guesswork? Tom's irritation flared at your insistence on rushing. Hurry, he repeated, his tone dripping with sarcasm. Oh yes, let's just rush through the entire process. That's a brilliant idea. I'm sure that'll guarantee a perfect potion. He shot you a sharp look as you adjusted the cauldron, his expression stern. There's a reason potions have specific procedures and instructions. Rushing through them leads to mistakes. We won't cut corners here. Understood. Oh, how delightful, he drawled sarcastically. You're in such a hurry to leave, aren't you? Well, newsflash, potions take time to brew. Skipping steps isn't going to make it brew faster. In fact, it'll likely extend the time because we'll have to redo a bunch of things you didn't follow correctly the first time. He shot you a pointed look, his patience wearing thin. We're doing this properly or not at all. All right, fine, he said. Since you're eager to get this over with, we'll gather the ingredients together. I'll write down the items we need, but I expect you to pay attention and actually remember what we need. We don't have time to waste. He pulled a piece of parchment towards himself and began to scroll down a list of ingredients. You take the salamander blood, lionfish spine, and flobberworm mucus from that shelf over there, he instructed, pointing to a section of shelves across the classroom. They're all together on one shelf. I'll collect the rest from this side. Just ensure you bring the exact quantities we need. We can't afford any inaccuracies if we want this potion to turn out right. As Tom collected his ingredients from the other side of the classroom, he couldn't help but glance back at you every so often. His expression was a mix of irritation and skepticism, a constant reminder of the annoyance he felt towards you. Each time his gaze shifted towards you, his eyes would narrow as if he was silently judging your ability to accurately gather the necessary items from the shelf. His focus remained divided between his own task and the cautious watch he kept on your progress. As Tom cast another glance back at you, he couldn't help but notice the progress of other students in the class. It dawned on him that he had wasted quite a bit of time arguing and scolding you, instead of working on the task at hand. His eyes widened slightly as he realized the truth. He had actually spent more time bickering with you than focusing on the potion. A hint of irritation flickered across his face once more as he hastened his pace back to his workstation, clearly frustrated with himself for the lost time. Tom eyed the items you placed on the table, his gaze assessing each one. There was a hint of annoyance still present, but he seemed somewhat satisfied that you had indeed brought the correct items. Good, he said curtly. At least you seem capable of following simple instructions for once. He studied the ingredients, his gaze moving from one to the other, as if silently double-checking your work. With a nod, Tom took a seat on his stool, the familiar look of concentration returning to his face. We're adding salamander blood in stages, he said. First, we'll add enough to turn the potion red. Tom continued stirring the concoction until the desired red hue was achieved, his hands moving with practiced precision. Once the color was just right, he looked up at you and instructed, "Now, we add the lionfish spines. 5 of them, if you would." Satisfied that you had followed his instruction correctly, Tom gave a subtle nod of approval as you added the lionfish spines to the potion. Good, he murmured, his eyes watchful as the spines were incorporated into the concoction. A faint hint of a smirk briefly flickered across his face, a rare moment of acknowledgement that you were actually capable of following instructions. Since the potion has turned yellow, now is indeed the time to add the additional 5 lionfish spines. Tom swiftly moved to the next step, his hand grabbing for the jar of flobberworm mucus. His expression was a mix of slight surprise and satisfaction. The fact that you were so attentive to the process, not going unnoticed. Now we add the flobberworm mucus, he declared, his voice betraying a hint of fascination. He quickly added the mucus to the potion, watching intently for the resulting change in consistency and color. Tom's usual stoicism flickered momentarily as a small smirk tugged at the corner of his lips. It was a hint of approval, a subtle acknowledgement that you were indeed proving yourself to be more competent than he had initially given you credit for. Keep this up, he teased, his voice tinged with a hint of amusement. And you might just have me reconsidering my opinion of Gryffindors. As you poured in the honey water, Tom's gaze briefly flickered towards you, noticing the genuine smile on your face. It caught him off guard, and for a fleeting moment, a small smile tugged at the corner of his own lips. It was an expression that softened his otherwise stern demeanor, making him seem less guarded. He quickly schooled his features, trying to maintain his composure, but there was a hint of amusement dancing in his eyes as he met your gaze. Tom stirred the potion, his hand moving in slow and methodical circles, ensuring that all the ingredients were thoroughly mixed. As he added the final touch, the boomberry juice, he glanced up at you, his expression a mix of curiosity and anticipation. There, he stated, his voice steady and firm. The final ingredient has been added. Now, we wait for the potion to simmer for 30 minutes. Impressive, he remarked, his tone somewhat grudging yet slightly softened. Even I couldn't find a flaw in that process. You actually managed to surprise me, and that doesn't happen often. Tom leaned against the desk, eyeing you with a mix of intrigue and disbelief. He couldn't quite understand how someone who was often regarded as careless and reckless could have done so well with something as precise and intricate as potion making. For someone so reckless, he said, his voice slightly sardonic, you handled delicate potions rather well. Pure luck, I assume. Despite himself, Tom found his cheeks flaring up at the unexpected compliment. He wasn't accustomed to such words of praise, especially not from someone he had initially dismissed as careless. He coughed lightly, trying to maintain his usual composure, and averted his gaze for a moment, as if trying to regain his bearings. Brilliant, you say, he managed to retort, his voice slightly rougher than usual. Perhaps I am an excellent teacher after all. Tom's expression shifted into a smirk, his tone dropping to a low, teasing whisper. Say it again, just so I'm sure I heard you right. Tom's smirk widened at your words, his cheeks still slightly flushed from earlier. He didn't expect you to actually repeat the compliment, and the sound of your words made his heart skip a beat. He tried to maintain his composure, but there was a hint of a smile on his lips as he responded. That's better, he replied, his voice still slightly hoarse. Now you're finally saying something intelligent. Tom's smirk returned, as you suggested, teaming up in the next class. He pretended to think for a moment, as if deliberating whether he could handle working with you again. He wanted to maintain his cool composure, so he answered with a hint of nonchalance. I suppose I could tolerate you for one more class. With the potion now brewing and the 30-minute wait ahead, Tom leaned back against the desk, folding his arms across his chest. He glanced at you with a curious expression. Well, with 30 minutes to spare, any ideas on what we should do next, he inquired. Oh, you want a list, do you? He retorted, his tone tinged with sarcasm. Very well, let's see. 1, you actually followed instructions without screwing up. 2, you didn't accidentally blow us up. 3, you didn't distract yourself with something ridiculous. 4, and you didn't annoy me to death. Yet,